Up along today. We are live here. We're actually not live. We'd like to be true to our audience. We're pre-recording this because Brandon's going to his park up in Arkansas, and Carlos is spending time with family. And I'll be here. So if you want to message me on social media during when you're actually watching this, we can chat live about it. But if you're not following us, please go to links.letstalkrealestate.tv and follow us so that we can hear from you and have fun conversations each week. So I've been having an interesting week. So been working with some customers, just trying to like enhance their investor view space, and help them with their processes, so on and so forth. I feel like there is such a stigma. I don't know if it's follow-up or new leads. Like I'm logging into people's spaces, and the lack of consistent follow-up they have with leads that they have previously generated, and they're only like touching the new ones, is like
100%.
baffles me. It's like, what do you think is happening here? Like, do you not like, why don't we nurture leads? Like, is it just like everybody's like chasing the new lead, and is
Poor
this going to
training,
be
bro.
the deal?
Poor training.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's probably that, right? Because I mean, maybe most business owners are like, the only KPI that I follow is, have you called the new leads, right? That's all they care about. Maybe that's what they teach, and therefore that's what their team focuses on. But it's like there's so much fruit being left on the tree, and nobody's up there cultivating it.
It's about how you train. So there's multiple things to train to, right? Like, so you train on what you guys call an I-3 speed to lead, right? Like how fast you're getting, and everyone calls it that, but like how fast you're getting to the lead, calling new leads, and you're doing that. And then there's training on the call protocol. You're going to double call, text, call, whatever it is, right? And so everyone's so ingrained on getting a hold of the lead, doing live transfers, getting a hold of them. And what happens is it goes down a path, right? It's either going up, I call it the good way up, which is, yeah, call me tomorrow and we'll sign the contract. Or, yeah, I'm interested. Let me talk to my husband. And as it starts going up this path, right, the hill becomes a little more difficult the longer it goes, right? Think about going up a hill. And the longer it goes up this hill of, yeah, give me a call next week, give me a call next week, give me a call next week, the harder the probability of your team following up with it. So it's probability difficulty going up, right, as the length of the follow-up goes on. So it keeps going up this fucking hill, and then people are like, well, that's been 3 weeks, 4 weeks, keeps kind of turning me off. And well, I remember, and here's the worst. I remember talking to her last week, and you're making this judgment as you look at the lead. She didn't really seem into it. I'll call her later. I'm gonna go call this one instead. This is a new lead. And what happens is you start to forget about them, and 2 of them pile up, 3 of them, 5 of them, 10 of them, 20 of them, and you forget about it.
But it
and
also
there's
seems
no training at that point.
It seems like a staffing problem too. It's like they staff for the amount of new leads coming in, and there's zero like thought process onto the workload of continuing to follow up with them.
Well, it depends on what you mean by follow-up, right? So like if you're talking about staffing as in having a follow-up specialist or a lead manager, or you're talking about training of the staff that you have, because I think a lot of people rely on their lead managers to do everything, which I think is a problem. I don't think your AC reps are properly trained, but it's like they get nervous of calling people that have already pushed them off multiple times. They don't
unwilling to the fear.
It's
like,
fear. It's 100%. And you know what? Just being honest, I have that fear too. I constantly have to tell myself, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to make the offer. Don't be afraid to call that person. Don't be afraid. You have the skill. You have the solution to their problem. But we put that off, right? And then 2, it's not just the fact that we're afraid to do it. We fear the fact that it's going to be another no and it won't get us the money. So we decide we want to call a newer lead because in our mind, we think that's a higher probability, which can or can't be true depending on the lead status.
Yeah.
If it's a PPC, you're right. But if it's a cold call, man, you're looking at like 6 months potentially of trying to touch that fucking lead. We talked about it last week with Esteban about like how long a fucking cold call lead takes. And I said it takes anywhere from like 6 to 8 months roughly. I don't know, man. Like I had the same thing. I talked to somebody in IF3. I was helping them with their team, and they had all these leads sitting. They weren't resurfacing them. They
Yeah, they're
weren't
just
doing
like they
anything.
sit there overdue.
I don't know, man. I mean, I'm
Maybe
okay with
maybe I would feel happy about it if they were like just marking them all as dead. Like I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with
well,
this. Like get it
so
out.
that's
I mean that's
that's
like
another
bad.
problem though, is they mark him as dead. And so like how do you train your team? So how do you train your team to follow up the right way? And how do you train your team to not mark ones as dead that shouldn't be, that should be continued to be follow up with?
You gotta QA it. You gotta go look at what they do, and you've got to provide feedback and
So
train
here
constantly.
so here's the thing is I feel as if everyone fucking lies. So like I have a feeling the person I was helping was lying to me about all the stuff that they do.
Uh-huh.
Because I felt as if it was true, there are certain ways he had his team set up, it wouldn't be necessary. It's like, is your during your daily meetings, right? What are you really training?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because if you're training, because they didn't have a way, like he has to review all the dead leads. And I'm like, well, if you're meeting every day and training your sales team, why is that not a part of your training? Why is that not one day of the week you're just harping on how to mark something as dead? What's a good status for this? Quizzing them. Why is that not an ongoing? Because if that's the case, you wouldn't need to separate your dead leads for you to review.
Mm-hmm.
You should know that your team is trained to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, you need a QA depending on how big your team is. Like at some point, you need a QA calls, people, things happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were talking about that with a group about how QA and even just like lead management as like making sure the CRM is being used properly is something that people don't talk
QA is
about
huge.
enough.
100%, dude. Like whether you're in Podio or in IF3, like IF3 is a little more complicated than Podio. There's more features in it, so like you really have to make sure they're using it properly.
Let's
Um,
use a different term than complicated, please. More
advanced,
well-rounded.
advanced. Nah, bro, it's fucking complicated because it has features. And features to anybody is complicated. Listen,
Sure.
my iPhone is complicated. I don't use half the shit that's on my iPhone because I don't fucking know. iMovie, iCut, iVideo, this. I don't fucking know is what I don't know. And
Yeah.
it's like, in the end, it comes down to like your training for your team on how to use whatever you're doing. The problem is you do one training up front,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're like, fucking wing it, because guess what? That's what I did.
Mm-hmm.
John didn't teach me how to use IF3. No one taught me how to use IF3. I taught myself how to use it. And we all assume that our people are going to do that. I don't know, man. I think a lot of people lie about what they train and how they train their team. But even if you train, there's still going to be problems. Like I know when I let a bunch of people in my team go towards the end of last year, I was cleaning house
Mm-hmm.
and I started going through the system and I found leads that like people don't touch. And it's like even with all of my checks and balances and follow-up specialists and this and that, there's always ways for people to skirt the system.
Yeah.
And I think what it comes down to is I think people are like, it's the misconception. I need to make money. This lead is old. A better lead is new. I would actually say the opposite. Older leads are better. Newer leads are more difficult unless they're like a inbound call from a direct mail or a PPC.
A motive,
Like
clearly a motivated
TV,
channel.
TV, radio, some shit like that. Like I've never
PPC,
personally done
SEO.
TV or radio, so I can't speak to that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I think that's a problem, but I'm not upset with it because I feel like those people are gonna fall out of business, and I'm okay with
True.
that. I'm
True.
100% okay with that.
I like the diagnosis John did with the team yesterday, and I'm forgetting the second part, but it's pretty much like, do you not have, for analyzing overdue actions, he's like, do you not have time, like enough staff to call these, or are you just kind of like choosing not to follow up with them because they're old? So I think
They don't
understanding
follow
that
up with
is,
their overdues. So, like for us, one of the first things you have to do in the day. So, if we use this smartphone integration, it's not an issue, right? You just dial. However,
dial 'em.
sometimes the problem with that is with smartphone is the call number. Especially if you're really talking to somebody, you don't want it to pop up as a different number every single time. So we have a
Right.
click to call. Like you'll go through your overdues initially or your due to days. Click to call anybody from the proper number that you need to.
Yes,
And then
that's
you throw it into
exactly how I teach it. Yes.
Yeah,
Call
and then
the important ones first.
Yeah, and then you throw the rest in, and then you move that action forward and you throw the rest in the dialer, or you click to call the rest, whatever your system is. But that's the first thing. Now listen, those motherfuckers can definitely fake move actions. And so if you have a QA, you could catch that. So like I had somebody on my team, it was probably when we first started IF3. They were moving actions because I was only grading actions. And so I was
talk time. That's before we had talk time in the dashboard, I think.
Right. And I was like, oh, you got to do your actions. Your actions need to be cleared. I wasn't even counting how many they were doing. I was counting what it looked like in the morning and what it looked like at day. So they figured it out and they were just moving the actions to the next day. And so there's so many ways, but then those aren't the right people anyway.
Right.
So, I mean, you just have the wrong people on the team. But your training needs to be there. And I learned over time what to properly track, what not to track. Yeah. But yeah, and that's the problem with moving into a new CRM. Assuming they're newer customers in your CRM. No? Yes?
Yeah, they are a little bit newer into the CRM.
Because you can't do that shit in Podio, bro.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean,
it's a different way to handle your leads, and it's a lot more accountability to yourself to handle the leads that way. That's why I'm excited about the smart dialer integration. Like it does help people get through a lot more actions during the day, so you can get through a lot more follow-ups and make sure you're staying in contact with people.
It does. Like I said, the only problem I really had with that was like it was a different number every time, and that does become a problem for some, but most people don't even.
Yeah.
I don't fucking know until you're really deep into that negotiation, that talking to the husband, talking to the wife, let's review, let me send you a blank copy of my contract,
Yeah.
Oh shit, I did that the other day. Fuck, dude.
You sent somebody a blank copy of a contract?
No, that's what we do. Like she wanted to review it. Her son's a lawyer. So for everyone out there who always fears this, don't fear it, man. You got to embrace the suck. And so I sent out the blank contract and her son reviewed it and I offered 168. ARV's like, I don't know, 250 on a good day, 275 if you're fucking lucky, 300 if the market just stays where it's like you're crushing it at 300, but good luck, it's going to sit a bit. So I was figuring like 250, 275, and I was like, okay, 168. She's kept it decent.
Anchor. Yeah.
I remember in my thing, I was like, picture novations, and she had called me back and she's like, yeah, we're going to do this. And I'm like, oh, okay. Mistake. I didn't verify the offer and just verified. I just accepted the yes. Sent her the contract blank, no numbers in it. Son reviewed it, had a couple adjustments, no problem. Thumbs up. Fucking, I was like, yeah. And I know, like in my office, they're like, oh yeah, he's locking it down. And I'm like, yeah, I got this shit, bro. Fuck yeah. And then like, dude, so I send it. I do the thing. Hey, listen, because she had custom changes. I was like, I can't do this through our automated way. It's going to take me like a couple minutes. Let me call you back. And we have a thing where it's not, I'll send it and call you back. It's when I call you back and you pick up, I will then send it. Very specific wording so they know they have to pick up in order to get it, not just get it and ignore my call.
Right.
So anyway, she picks up. I'm like, all right, are you in front of your computer? Send it. Husband opens it up. He's in the background. I hear him. She's like, I'm so glad this worked out. Da, 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 da. We're really excited to work with you. You're wonderful. And she goes, what was the price again? And I was like, 160. I was like, 168, right? And I know 168 was my offer the week before because in IF3, we record all of our verbal offers and it's on a banner. It's on a fucking banner. And I'm like, 168. She goes, no. And I'm like, yes.
Yes.
She's like, no, it wasn't. I'm like, let me just check. And I was like, yeah, 168. I said, why? What did you think it was? She goes, 268.
Oh my gosh.
And right there, I said 268. Someone's walking by and they look at me and they shake their head. And I was like, not getting the fucking deal. Not getting the fucking deal.
And no wonder she was whistling so happy.
Which is funny. It has happened numerous times with like older people. 115, they hear 150. Like, I don't know how 168 became 268. And she was a sweet lady. She goes, okay. I mean, I really thought when you said 268, it was too good to be true. And I said, well, that's because it really was. And I was like, oh, I can't, ma'am. I was like, I could never pay that much. And she's like, well, somebody offered me 240. And I said, you need to call that guy like right now. Anyway, I'm still in talks with her. I waited a day. I told her to go call people if she could get the price she wanted. She loved me. I had such rapport. And then I called her back the next day, pitched novations. She really liked the idea, wanted to think it over. Hopefully I get it for an ovation, but because she does want the easiness and not the hassle. And she's willing to wait to get the extra money, which is a perfect pitch for novation. So shout out to Eric Brewer. If I get the novation, I'll let everybody know. But that was so even with the best training, shit happens. Like I followed all the protocol. The only thing I messed up on was I didn't confirm the price when she accepted it verbally on the phone. But IF3 has it. It's right there. It fucking said in a banner, previous offer 168.
That's a pretty big discrepancy.
Right? Yeah, big discrepancy, bro. Big fucking discrepancy.
The magical 100K just happened somewhere in the conversation.
It was just funny because the hype here in the office was high, and then it like immediately ebbed as that happened. It was hype high because it was a huge deal. I mean, that would have been a phenomenal spread for us.
Yeah. Well, who knows? It sounds like it's still in the pipeline, and 240 still sounds awfully high for.
Well, she said a realtor told her they could. So in the time frame, she had called a shit ton of realtors, had like 7 of them call her back. We chatted for like another 30 minutes the following day, and she would say one guy came back and told her 320. And she goes,
holy hell.
I don't want someone to tell me a pie in the sky number and then it's sitting here forever. I just want someone to be realistic with me. I said, man, that's how realtors work. I mean, trust me, I didn't tell her, but trust me, I fucking know because I used to be one of them. They train you to do that at a lot of brokerages.
Yeah.
Was this deal in your local market? Yeah.
Was this? Yeah, a little on the outskirts, but yeah, I was here in Florida, in Central Florida.
I'm curious how, since you've been doing it for so long in that area, how much you're aware of other people that might be offering on it. Like if it's like established people there versus like just newer investors that are making offers on property. Like if you just hear she's like, oh, I got an offer from someone, similarly that called me for 240.
That's a hard question to ask because it'd be different if you were asking me that and I was in like fucking Jackson, Mississippi. But I'm in Central Florida. Everybody, when they get trained on going multiple markets, whose market they want to go into, which is mine.
Which is probably different vastly different the last few years where everybody's doing virtual.
Everybody's doing virtual. This wasn't like that when I started out, and even like when I was an agent just hustling deals, like it wasn't like that. I didn't know what wholesaling was, even though I was wholesaling back then. We were just we call it like sliding deals to be sliding deals. And like, you know what I mean? You're pocket listing shit. I don't know. I mean, it's all good, but yeah, I mean, I get a lot of competition down here from people out of town, out of state, just because again, it's the Tampa, Orlando markets. I'm in between both. And those are the first 2 markets that everybody thinks about in Florida when they're like, oh, I'm going into the Orlando, just like Dallas and Houston in Texas. Those are the 2 big ones. When you think about Southern and Atlanta, those are the markets everybody wants to go into. They're big metropolitan markets.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I was a little worried when you flipped over your board that we'd have to put a mature sticker on this.
I thought the same exact thing.
Because then I realized that's an R behind you. But what is that
same
word?
Exact thing.
Oh, did you think that said penis? No, that says rents. I guess
I
could see.
It looked like an I.
That's a T right there. That's supposed to be a T.
I figured it out.
This is not safe for work.
I was like, man, this is like really
Renus? Cool. What's Renus?
Rents. Everyone does say my handwriting is sloppy. I apologize, guys. Listen, I am not above the crude joke, but that was not my intention on this one. That says rents up.
Problems down?
Problems down, bro. I am so sick and fucking tired of like some of these motherfuckers out here. And like for all the people that say like rental properties are like, oh man, it's so passive. It's passive for me, but not for my wife because she runs the part. I don't run that business. The only thing I do is I'm the guy on the ground because I have experience with contract. I mean, because of all the flipping I've done, like contractors, vendors, I could talk the talk. I know what I'm doing when I'm out there. She handles everything else.
Yeah.
So all these complaints, she was on voice. It was Sunday, right before the Super Bowl. She's on speakerphone getting bitched at by a tenant.
Yeah.
And I was like, how much is that motherfucker paying? She's like $500 a month. I'm like, fuck that. And I was like, how big is it? And she's like, $1,280. So our rents for that should be like $934, right? That's at 73 cents a square. And it's like, let's get the motherfucker out. You attitude, she's just indignant, man. Like
Was she pissed because you were raising rents or just pissed even before raising rents?
She wasn't even, she doesn't even know she's getting the rent raised.
Okay.
She's pissed because she has a leak and there was supposed mold on the wall. And there's a leak under her sink leaking in her daughter's room. And I'm like, okay. She's like, well, no one's fixed it. Well, have you told us?
Told anybody?
Literally just, so no, she hasn't. And then she's like, and you know what? My heater's not working and you guys fixed it and it still doesn't work. And we're like, well, I mean, we sent the guy out there twice. Well, he's been out here and he was out here yesterday and he said that he was going to call you and tell you it needs to be replaced. I'm like, who's called him? We haven't called him to come out there. How many times has he been out there? Multiple times. And my wife's like, well, we haven't authorized him to come out. She had been calling the AC guy to come out. And just check on, 100%. And she goes, well, you're not allowed to do that. Well, I can when nobody gets back to me. She goes, ma'am, because we keep track of everything.
Oh, yeah.
Every call, every request. We have everything automated. Like, well, you've never reached out to us. You called me and I called you back in 5 minutes. So tell me the time that you couldn't get a hold of us. And then they immediately shut up. Because the biggest lie tenants say is I left you, I called you, you didn't pick up. We record every call log. Tell me what day it was. I'll go look. Let me search by your phone number. What number did you call me by? In fact, I'll just look by missed calls. Is it this? Nope. I don't see one that we didn't identify or call back. And then they immediately shut the fuck up. Yeah. But it's funny because like all the low rent people have attitudes like that. Yeah. And I love low rent and I'm not trying to charge, single family mansion style rents. That's not my thing. But there is a difference between somebody getting a gift and somebody paying a fair low rent. And by a gift, I mean like $500, $600. You're not going to get that anywhere. And they feel as if they're due everything versus paying $800, $900, which is still low for the market. And putting in our own tenants. So that's why I say problems down is because we put in our own tenants. When you take over problem children from the previous owner that they've dealt with and have like kind of pacified, it becomes a problem. And then like the other problem we're having is we have 4 vacant units we're fixing up. Our other tenants are telling everybody that we have vacant units and what their rents are. And so we're getting bombarded with calls because they all want the cheap rent, but we want
the rent to go up,
to raise the rent. And you can't do that if our tenants keep telling everybody that the rent's like $600, $700. And it's like, nah, bro, it's $600, $700 because you've been here for so fucking long. We got people renting 1,600 square foot double wide 3-2 for $675.
Good God.
Yeah. That motherfucker should be like $1,216.
Yeah. 3-2?
3-2. Well, most of them are 3-2, John. Okay. About all of them are 3-2. We have a couple 2-2s, but they're single wide. So they're like
small.
Yeah, we have a couple 900s, but mostly they're around the 1,200 square foot range. But a double wide is just a different living area inside. It's a different style inside, so you get more for it. I don't know, man. So yeah, we're doing company wide rent increases, but I guess rolling that out. So I was reviewing. So we waited. We had to get all the right crews. I'm still a little iffy on a handyman right now because I let one go. The guy with the bid he waited 3 weeks that you saw me on Instagram. But we had to find a lawyer. We had to get our own leases because it's a new state. So we didn't have any state leases, any state addendums or anything. So we've been building our team of people in that area and we're finally ready. So according to our lawyer, I just reviewed the lease. I think we have to give him a 30-day notice. I thought it was 60. So I have to confirm with him. In Arkansas, I thought it was 60 days for a rent increase, but he wrote in there 30. Okay. So I'm going to confirm that. But if that's true, we're going to let them know this month, and either by the end of March or by the end of April, depending on the exact timeline, our park-wide increases are going. So we went one by one yesterday, figuring out who's going up what. We know where we want the rents to stabilize at based on the size. So we're trying to normalize everything based on square footage, price per square foot, and based on bedroom and single or double wide.
Yeah.
And we're trying to stabilize that price essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're jacking up roughly about 10% on most people. Some people, like the ones who were like way under, we're going really high because either they pay it and stay or they leave. And I'm okay if they leave because I could get more out of it. But here's the beauty. So we estimate that we are raising rents, and Tyler's going to hate me, the guy who sold me the park, if he's watching this, because he's going to be pissed he sold it to me. We're only raising the rents roughly about $3,000 to $4,000 a month, about $4,000 a month on our initial park increase. If nobody else leaves and they all just accept the rent raise, because if they leave, it's going even more. Because we're not at the 73 cents. We're on average raising it to 65 right now, from 50 cents on the dollar on the square foot to 65. We're going to raise the value of the park at an estimated at an 8 cap would be a raise on of 600,000 in value. Just by
Holy
raising
hell.
rent. We'll get an extra 600K in equity, and we're still have another like 10 cents a square foot to add on to get up to market rent. I mean, our lot rents are low. We're just trying to do it incrementally because we can't have everybody in the park fucking vacate
leave at the same time. That would not be good.
Like, we started a few people. Like, there's some people we expect to leave from the rent increases. There's some people that are problems, like the one I told you about, that we're thinking we're going to raise extra and probably even just ask them to leave.
Yeah.
But when we do this, we're also sending our new leases out, which have all of my special terms, which is what I was reviewing, because there's a lot of stuff that they get away with. You know. So
how do you market for the new tenants?
Yeah, I was going to ask that question too.
Man, you know what? I'm gonna do it because I think our viewers are loyal.
Is that too close to the vest?
That is close to the vest because I'm trying to be the best at something here. And I know a lot of people are iffy about it, but I'm not. When I used to work for the hedge funds, I encountered some, and I used to do all their property placements. I had gotten a call from somebody on Section 8, and this was like 2012. I'd gotten a call from somebody on Section 8, and everything I heard about Section 8 was horrible. Don't do it. They're fucking, poor people who don't take care of shit. And then I went through the process, and I talked to people on Section 8, and I talked to the housing authority, and I realized that it's a fucking gold mine. So when we got our quads, our duplexes, we were filling units, Section 8, Section 8, Section 8, you get an automatic check. Those people do not want to lose their voucher. They do not want any complaints. You know what I mean? Like, they don't want that to happen. They become really good tenants. So we're filling it up on Section 8. Brittany has been in contact with the housing authority out there. I talked to the guy who does the inspections and the appraisals on the rent values, talked to him about what we could raise the rent for. And that's where I'm getting my numbers that I'm telling you guys, because I talked to what Section 8 could get. And for a 3-bedroom, if it was double wide, I could get a lot more, but most of ours are single. So yeah, we're going to go advertise with Section 8, and they have so many people to fill. And then what that does is it's like, it sets a tone for all your other tenants. Like, I'm not going to kick you out. If you don't give me a problem, you pay rent. I don't want to spend thousands to turn your unit over.
Right.
But if you start calling my office, yelling at my staff, and doing all kinds of shit, yeah, I mean, that's why we keep you on. Yeah, that's why we keep you on a month to month.
Yeah.
Like, we'll boot you out. Now, Section 8, we'll have to put on an annual, but that's fine because they're going to deposit their money directly into our account. And I can max the rents out. If I could bring the rents up to where they need to be, I would probably be adding another, let's say if I did that, I would immediately be adding about 1.2 in equity on top of it. And I still have 3 completely units that I have not even touched yet that need full rehabs, and 2 need to be replaced. 1 needs rehab, which is going to cost me about 15-20K, but I'm trying to get the rest of my shit in order before I do those.
Yeah.
So then that'll add another 3,000 a month on top, because I'm going to replace those 2 with double wides.
And your schedule is to go there once a month, essentially? I'm just curious how this is all being managed and
so we've automated everything. we've automated it all. I mean, it's taken 4 months to do it, but Brittany's done a pretty good job of getting everybody transferred over to maintenance requests and all that. We have runners. We have everybody, every vendor you could imagine without a fucking good handyman. And like we've bounced handymen around and like, you know, either they don't show up or they don't respond to your call. So we are still at a loss for a good handyman in Arkansas. So, but we can answer, you know, emergency plumbing, ACs, heat, electric, septic, pump outs, you know, shit like that. Like that's not a problem. So we're pretty good. We got our lawn crew. I'm going out there to meet them. You know, that's the other thing is I pay fucking $20-some $100 a month for lawn care, you know, to take care of the 20 acres of this park. And like, I don't charge that back. So that's why I want to charge more in rent because I'm doing your lawn for you.
Yeah.
Which I want to because I want to control what's on my yard in a park. I want to be able to have some rules about what you're doing to keep my park looking clean.
Yeah. Especially with how big your park is. I mean, the potential for expansion there.
Yeah, there's another 20 acres there.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned quite a bit. I'm not an expert at this yet.
Yeah.
But I'm loving it. I'm loving every bit of it.
No one starts out an expert.
There's a lot of rumors going around in the park. Brittany was telling me about like who owns it. Because the park is like a little community of like just gossip.
You need to watch Trailer Park Boys. Like,
I do. I might watch it. I might have to watch it while I'm out there at the hotel. But
dude,
like,
as a up and coming tycoon of mobile park owner, you just need to.
Well, that's what they think. That's what they think I am. They think it's a tycoon who owns a bunch of parks. Other people think I'm like an Indian guy, like all kinds of shit. Like Brittany has heard all kinds of stories about what they're saying about the owner, and they're trying to figure like who's the owner. So who's Brandin when he comes out? And I'm just the property manager. I don't need to be. I'm not the owner.
Yeah.
So like that's another. Let's stop talking about me for a second and let's have this conversation. Do you own rentals if you syndicate? So I'm a very specific person, like, and I like to be as honest as possible. And like, if people ask me, like, do you own it? Like, I don't think technically I own this park. Like, so I guess the real question is when you syndicate and you own anywhere from 30 to 60 or 70% of a deal versus you buy a deal with your own money and you own 100%, who actually owns units? So there's a huge consensus about like, well, if you syndicate, you're not the owner, you're just a property manager. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. But like, where does that fall?
By that same logic, do you own your house if you have like a low down payment percentage as possible, like a 3% down payment on some type of product that the mortgage companies are giving out? Or does the bank own it?
That's true. But it's like, I see where they're coming from because it's like, so for me, and I was talking to a buddy out in Orlando, we were talking about, he does self-storage and stuff. And we were talking about like his percentages and he's charging like 60%, 50, 60, 70, just depends on the deal. But like when I hired my attorney, my syndication attorney, she was saying that a lot of the bigger companies are doing, because they charge huge acquisition fees, they're only getting 30% of the deal. So like, I think it also goes to like your percentage. Like if you own more than 50 or more of a deal, I think then you could say you own them. But if you're only at like 25 or 30%, I don't know. I don't feel like it's there for you. And I feel like you getting on social media and stuff saying you own 2,000 or 5,000 units, but you only own, I think that's a misleading statement.
There's a lot that goes on there.
But isn't that true of all things, right? I mean, even Pace Moore be getting on and saying, I just bought an apartment complex. He didn't buy the apartment complex.
Yeah, he brought people in. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the answer. I'm not saying, I know I always feel uncomfortable when people ask me, how much do I own? And it's like, well, what do I own? Some of my flips I don't even own. Some of my flips, the people who give me money, they just put it in their name. I use their money and I do it, and we have a relationship and they pay me at the end. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way, and they give me money and it goes into my name, and it's just who owns the deal? I don't know. I don't know the answer, but I think in today's world, there's a lot of like back and forth on like legitimacy of business.
Yeah. 100%.
I think that brings. So that's kind of like a legit thing, almost like the HUDs are not that we were talking about a couple episodes. But I'm also thinking of just how the world is now, and brings a separate topic but related of ownership versus controlling something that you don't own,
But
and like what's your end goal?
and so that's the thing. I think if you control it,
Mhm.
technically, but I agree. But that's the way they said it. Okay. Or you're not an owner, you're a property manager, because although you control it, you're technically like a property manager. And yes, you're getting equity in it, 25%, 30%. I don't fucking know, man. But listen, at the same time, if you're telling me I own 30% of 10,000 fucking units, or I have 30% of $1 billion portfolio,
Right.
you could call me whatever the fuck you want to call me. I'll be
Yeah.
laughing the whole way on my private jet.
For real.
Oh, dude,
Doesn't matter.
I saw this was fucking hilarious. I was taking a shit this morning and I was scrolling through TikTok, right? And I was just dying. And like it was Andrew Tate like laying on a bench doing a close grip bench press with a dumbbell, and it was like a 30-pound dumbbell. So somebody trolled him and was like, light weights. And he goes, that was the heaviest weight I could find in my super yacht. Tell me, how heavy are the weights on your super yacht? I was just dying. And I was like, you can call it, he's got a super yacht. You could say he's lifting all the tiny weights in the fucking world, but he's lifting weights on a fucking yacht, and you're sitting back at your house. So shut the fuck up. So that's the same thing. I can have 30% of $1 billion portfolio versus you could be 100% of your $20 million portfolio. Mine, yeah, I scale quicker because I used other people's money. You don't have full control, and you don't have to answer to anybody, but you're still not as wealthy as me. So like I see both sides of the fucking argument. Me personally, after syndicating, I'm down for. I now understand the value of syndicating. I used to be 100% me all the time, and I did not scale that way. Like I'm not saying you can't, but bro, like 60% of a deal.
Yeah, you're bringing the logistics and the traction of the deal together. Like I think that's a variable or qualifying term for like ownership. Like you're putting the piece together. Even like someone like Pace, that's like facilitates that whole thing.
You can't get that deal without Pace, because he only got that deal because of his community, because of his brand. So like he gets to charge whatever. I mean, you're getting a phenomenal deal just because people are coming to him now with deals. He's built a phenomenal community / brand.
And that conversation goes like big too. Like, I mean, we've talked about it before. Elon Musk, like Jeff Bezos, like what do they own of their own companies? Like 12%.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos owns like 10-12%.
Yeah.
And so that's a good point. That's a good point to look at it. It's like, hey, listen, just because the Waltons only own like 10-20% of their company, are they still not the fucking Waltons? So that's what I'm saying. Like, I see both sides of this. It just maybe struck close to home because I used to be a guy who owned 100% of like a couple dozen rentals, right?
Yeah.
Not much. I did not own many. I syndicated, and now I own 36 rentals. Yeah. So I immediately doubled, tripled what I had previously, but I didn't use any of my own money. Well, yeah, we did. I mean, we had to pay for stuff, but you get the idea.
Yeah, I feel like I could have that same kind of reality shift in my future career if I keep going with SaaS, right? Like currently, all the companies I've done have been boot camp or
if you keep going, bro, you don't have a fucking choice. We got Aria App Center, baby.
No, I'm just saying, like 20 years down the line, am I still doing SaaS software? Anyway, whatever. I love what I do, so I have zero interest in changing what I do.
The mainstream media outlets. John Whitfield said he's quitting SaaS today. Find out more at 6.
This just in. John Whitfield, co-founder of Investor Views, is now quitting SaaS. He is moving into Section 8 rentals. Breaking news, everybody. We have Brandin on the ground here.
But yeah, I could have the same conversation in my head, right? Like currently, and I've never been a majority owner until RI Op Center, right? Yeah. But like even still, like all of that's been bootstrapped. Like feel like it's mine. Have been in charge of the direction. But then you get to the point, like if you have a SaaS company that's funded and you got a board of directors, it's like a whole different ecosystem of how that works versus what we have right now. And I can imagine like you feel the same way though, right? With when you 100% own it, you get to make all the decisions. But now it's like you're making the decisions, but you got to make sure you can go back to the syndicate and say, here are the results I promised you. And here they are now being delivered, right?
So I think the biggest thing is like the control.
Mhm.
I've made the mistakes. If you saw my one post, I didn't control a couple deals and you lose all power in it.
Yeah.
And I have a couple partners in a flip that we were selling, and like, because of the way the deal was structured without structure, right? He's overstepped, did some stuff. We lost the buyer, all kinds of shit. And it's like, when you're syndicating, you're still maintaining control. Like the way the shares are split in your syndication LLC, your syndicated LLC, like the ownership one, like they don't have a say. They're not going to the park. They can't go and visit and tell you to go fix up a unit. I'm like, there was one, I got a call from my one partner the one time. He's like, so why did you leave the windows this way? Like, I'm sending one of my guys out and I'm getting a window quote. I'm like, one, we've already reached budget. The windows don't need to be done. I have a buyer lined up. Do not fucking, no, we don't want to push out a product like that. Like, I want to make sure I'm going to get a quote, and I'm going to have them put a deposit down and we're going to replace the windows. I've already called the buyer and I'm like, what the fuck have you done? The whole deal went down the toilet from that moment. We lost everything. Like it was fucking horrible, bro. But like, you can't do that in the syndication. You can't call me and tell me that you're unhappy that I didn't raise rents on unit 2 because she's an old lady with an autistic child. I get to make that decision myself.
How can I syndicate a SaaS? This sounds great. No board of directors.
But you can, but the VCs get all the control.
Right. That's what the board of directors, like, I mean, you watch Silicon Valley, and I've heard of it from other companies that I've met that are way bigger than what I am. And they're like, I was talking when we were in Phoenix, I was talking to Trevor about a company that's in Phoenix, and he's like, yeah, like, it took them 4 years to get their North Star metric. They would come up with an idea. They'd go to the board would say, I don't feel like that's it. And then they'd have to go back and then redo it all over again and then keep coming back and keep doing the whole process until they finally figured out like what the North Star metric was that the board of directors were happy with. Not the people that are like running it, talking to the customers,
I will never do that. Do that. I can never give up control.
Like such a just soul crushing environment to attempt to affect some change.
Speaking of SaaS, Carlos, you and I'm gonna call you out on that offer to have a conversation with me on selling SaaS, because like I had a meeting, a demo with somebody on REI Ops Center, and typically like I guess I get kind of like complacent with the fact that we have such a great product and it fills such a need that people typically just say yes to me. But like I talked to somebody yesterday and I didn't make the sale, and I was telling John, I'm like, and I remember telling my wife when I got off the call, I'm like, I felt like I did everything right, but I missed something because I got the old, let me talk to my partners about it. And yeah, maybe, if it doesn't work out with our other software, because I still have 4 months left on it, then we'll sign up with you. Send me your link, blah, 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 blah. And then I pull back and I was like, well, I was like, which is true. Like we only have limited spots for our Bravo offer. And once they're filled because we are giving away our software to bring in our initial users. Like never again am I giving away all this shit for this fucking cheap. It took a lot of convincing with John for me to give all this shit. So all of that tied up. And I still didn't make the sale. So yeah, I'd like to sit down with you and find, like, do you run into that? Like, what kind of tactics? Because I know you believe heavily in Dan Martell, who's a SaaS sales guy. And I watched that video you sent me, but it doesn't really go into that on a demo call. But like he's tied into Batch. So this guy's tied into Batch. I did not know Batch tied you in for a year, but he's tied into Batch for a year. He's very upset with them. I guess now they've redone their Batch 3 version, and now like to get what we're offering for list organization, you have to pay like $800 and some bucks a month, I guess, for fucking
Damn.
batch. Like they limit his exports, they limit a lot of his stuff, and like he's like, it's great if you want to stay inside there and cold call and text, but he's like, we use launch control, we have a separate call service we go out to. And he's like, to get my data in and out of there is extremely difficult for the plan that I'm on, unless they want me to go pay 800 and some bucks a month. So I had the pain, bro. But I feel like I fucked up somewhere that I couldn't convert somebody from batch over.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few from the inputs of information I have just right here. There's a few variables there. I think you're leading with the top one, mastery level sales, which this is the biggest thing that I could improve on, is just getting into the pain point and just probing around, like uncomfortably describing their pain, and then always going to their like what RI Ops Center would provide, like always linking back to that with specific features. So that's the mastery level.
Pain, paint the picture. Pain, paint the picture.
Pain, paint the picture, but like an uncomfortable amount saying the pain, which I still, that's like the biggest
Maybe
part
I didn't
of
do
that
that
whole thing
enough.
I struggle with. Well, it's also a few other things. So typically trying to have anybody that's a decision maker that's actually putting money into the investment or needs to sign off on the investment, getting that up top first is a thing. And you're not always going to close like a higher ticket item, like a few $1,000. Like you're not always going to close somebody on the first call. But ideally, you want to know who the decision makers are, or who needs to sign off on swiping their card.
It's just like making a wholesale offer, man. It's like
it's very. I would say it's similar.
Yeah, because I haven't run into that yet. Usually, I've just met with the one decision maker. You know what I mean? Like I've already talked to both of them, and then the other guy gets back on the call. So I guess I haven't run into that. So touching pain more, decision maker. What else am I missing?
Those are the two main ones from what I'm thinking, because I don't know what's specific, like, and I'm sure you nailed like a specific feature that matches their pain point, like limited exports, pricing, support, XYZ. I'm sure you crushed all that. Asking for the sale. So that is something I'm pretty ruthless with right now. And I even set that I'm ruthless with that, and I'm setting my expectation
I didn't do that.
I set that expectation at the front. So that's like something you have to learn, like. And I was even talking with Mike on our team, who's going to be handling some sales stuff when I'm on family vacation here. But it's so much easier when you set your expectations up front and you just say confidently, which I was talking about a couple episodes ago, is just what you're doing in your own. A lot of that's what Dan Martell says, what you're doing in your personal, your personal habits, your workouts, eating clean. Like you're just going to come to that so freaking confident. But you tell them, I say. And you want to be selling from your heels, which I love. Like I do not like high pressure sales. Like that would just drain my energy. But when you're selling from your heels and you straight up tell them like, hey, I want to be as helpful as possible. There's 2 doors we're going to go past. I want to be respectful of your time and just get right into it. There's a chance that we're not going to be a fit for you. If that's the case, we're going to cut this meeting short. I'm going to give you back your time and I'll still be as helpful as possible in pointing you in the right direction, which depending on how ethical you are, you could or could not point them to other competing products. But if you are interested and we're a fit, there are people that are signing up without talking to our sales team that just sign right up. So this time is reserved actually for companies that are ready to sign up in a short window of time. If that's the case, is that the case for you? Because if it is, then we're going to talk about like signing up, what it looks like to onboard, ongoing training and support, and what that whole looks like. So is that fair going through one of those 2 doors? And sometimes you even get compliments on that. Like a guy complimented, I don't know if he's going to convert like I would say like a medium score lead, but sometimes you get multiple times actually recently since I've been getting that, they kind of like applaud that. They're like, oh wow, you like really painted a good picture there. But I like to do that, and then you can always loop it back at the end of the call too. And you would find out too that on the beginning.
So it's very the intro, but then
setting expectations is massive. So setting expectations is absolutely massive.
And are you doing in the intro, or in setting the stage, is that when you're doing decision makers?
Yes. So one wrinkle that I would throw in, and I can also send you a video of this.
Yeah.
Is essentially doing like a discovery / triage call. So for you, when someone books time to talk about REI Ops Center, ideally you want to capture their phone number and just call them. Because in other outbound stuff I've been watching, like I guess a lot of them are referral leads, but a lot of inbound leads are like trash, like super low quality. So if you can call them right away and just disqualify them instead of following up with them for multiple weeks, that's absolutely huge. Talking about like kind of
this is so similar. So like it's it's a different beast, but it is very similar to like how my script's set up for wholesale. It's like it's the same thing, right? Like my initial call, my initial reach out is to gather information. And we use the same line. We're like, hey, listen, what my goal here is to find out, if we're going to be a good fit or not. I can promise you we're going to give you a yes or no. If it's a yes, we'll be able to put together an offer. If it's a no, I'm going to give you a reason why. Does that sound fair? We're typically buying either fixed properties that need fixed up or properties that are rentals. Does that sound like your property could fit in either one of those two categories? If they say no, that's a disqualification. I go a little further to see if I get more disqualification. So it's kind of the same thing.
Similar, sure.
So I'll have to touch base with you on it. I mean, I don't want to take up too much time on the webinar.
We could do some sales episodes for sure, but
sales.
And also the most important thing is not the most important thing, but anytime that it's not closed or they give the decision maker line, there's some specific obstacle overcomers, objection overcomers, where it's like, oh, I need to talk to my partner. Yeah. Like Hormozy has a couple of those. So there are some
those are good ones.
If you want like a direct tactic, you could use that. But I think the most important time is even putting like a tentative, just future. If they won't commit to a Zoom meeting, I get them to say, well, hey, tentatively, like, could I call her? That's my alarm going off. Just make sure I don't miss a meeting. Hey, can I at least call or shoot you a text?
I didn't do
that
either.
2 weeks out. Is that fair? So that's big, just to kind of keep them in the loop. But I think SaaS sales are definitely, and I think that's the mastery level too, is like you can still convert extremely high, like higher above industry standards, just by confidence, knowing the product, matching features to pain points, setting the stage, and ultimately having a good product.
I think the same process over, man. It's like being in real estate investing. It's like you still got to master a sales process. And that's the thing, is carrying that sale. And what you're saying is kind of the same thing. Like for REI, there's decision makers. I don't do a rebuttal because I bring it up in advance and I say, I notice on title there's this person, or who else do we got to talk to, blah 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 blah. And so I bring it up, and then if they say, oh, there's somebody else, I'll be like, wait, I thought earlier you said there was nobody else.
Yeah,
what happened between now and then?
I think the biggest thing, and I've seen the Calendly link, but I would try to call the person, because like psychologically, when they're taking time to type in their information and look at their calendar versus what's available on your Calendly link, that's going to be kind of like a high temperature.
So I need to add in a phone number collection.
1,000,000%. Add a phone number in and call them right there, or ideally as soon as possible. At minimum, if you can't, at least shoot them a text just to acknowledge or try to get them on the phone. And then here's what you want to answer for inbound, which I was also explaining to Mike on our team, who's the man, just kind of like the psychology of people that you're going to be talking to. So for the majority of us, it's all inbound, where people are like searching for a CRM or searching for lead management. So that, say the meat and potatoes of the call, the main portion of the call is like, hey, I want to understand, like, what's typically most helpful for me after I set the 2 doors they can walk through is just understanding how you heard of Investor Fuse and what's going on in your business that made you sign up for the call. And I don't necessarily say it, but it's like, hey, your time is valuable. You're taking time out of your business to find calendar time to talk about a software. Like what's causing that?
I think that'll be good. I usually send an email with my demo video and ask them to watch it ahead of time, so we don't waste time on the call walking through all the features.
That's one of my ingredients. That's one of my ingredients of motivation. I have a lot of ingredients of just and I can pretty much tell on people now just doing it the same thing for so long. But that's definitely an ingredient. But there's definitely could be motivated people who are like, I didn't have time.
Yeah.
If you're really interested,
if you're really interested, you may listen, Brad. So John made me do it in under 10 minutes. So it's 10 minutes. But anyway, I appreciate it. I need to connect with you offline about this. Maybe you and I can set up a Zoom call. And maybe I can record it and take some notes.
Yeah, the exciting thing is, and I don't know data management super well, or data, like all things data. Like I've never done that. I hear people talk about, but I bet there are some super painful points that people would have that you could really dig into and paint them up. Yeah, like you can. I'm sure that you could like really get in there. Like I'm sure it's deeper than even like lead management or CRM
but
stuff.
But again, that's the difference in like REI and in this. It's the difference between a talented salesperson saying the right thing, a slick talker, silver versus somebody with a dialed in process. It's not that I won't complete sales, but still, if I want to sell as much as I can, I get it. I solve a lot of problems, right? Just like if I offer enough money, I can get a deal. Solve enough problems, you will get the deal, but it's the skill, right? The art is in the skill, the science of that process. So that's why I want to get that down. I mean, I owe it to the company, to myself.
Dude, I'd love to jam. That would help me with my crap too. Just bouncing back and forth.
See that? You see that? And for anybody out there trying to start a software or an app, this is great sales tips. Dan Martell, Carlos turned me on to Dan Martell. So
yeah, it's an underrated thing that people think about. Was like you hear about unicorns in SaaS, and you're just like, I got to build something great, and they'll come.
That's what I thought. I thought it was Kevin Costner in Field of Dreams, baby.
There you go.
I mean, it can happen, and that happened for Investor Fuse at the very beginning, but that's because we were literally the first way to get a Podio build out for REI. Like first to market, total unicorn. And it honestly fucked us up for a long time. I mean, it took me and Carlos, 2 years ago, completely being like, let's forget everything that ever happened and figure out how do we get people to convert today. And we rebuilt our sales process.
Bravo. Once I sell out of Bravo and all those people who didn't sign up when I sent them the link, I'm like,
you had your chance.
This was good
Stuff.
I gotta hit the gym, guys. I gotta hit the gym today. I'm being consistent with my work. I have been crushing it.
That helps with your sales calls, baby.
Yeah, baby. I'm telling you, man. I'm doing double days. I run and work out every day of the week now. It's all at once, inside, outside. I'm not doing 75 hard, but I'm keeping a positive mind because I got a lot of shit going on. And REI Ops Center, got to sell that shit, baby. Got to sell
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Sell it.
Let's do it.
Let's lock and load.
All right, guys. Have a good one. See ya.
See you guys
later.